Okay, I assume this is going out live. Hi everyone. I haven't been around for the last few days. I can't even remember when my last broadcast was, but it's been a bit difficult to get internet connection, as I explained in my last article. For those of you that didn't read it, we were talking about how how we were being followed, how the attitude towards us had changed in Sittwe, where the Rohingya camps are, because people had realized that we were visiting the IDP camps, to visiting the Rohingya, how our internet magically just wouldn't disappeared in the hotel, although they advertised Wi-Fi, but down the road the internet cafe had the internet, but obviously we weren't going to use that because it just put us at too much risk. Um, I was called a Rohingya at one point. I was out in the evening trying to go to the internet cafe on my way back, and on the way there, someone said, why don't you go down here?" And on the way back, they said, "That's where the Muslims are. Why don't you go down there?" And then a few minutes later, someone pulled up on a motorbike and aggressively asked us, "Where are you going?" And then after that, they said, "Come with me." Obviously we refused, and they went off shouting something that I didn't understand. So that's partly the reason I haven't been available. So I'm going to go through some of the stuff that we've seen in the last few days in Sittwe. We visited the Rohingya camps, and the conditions there. To get to the camps, you have to go past military and police checkpoints. And so the Rohingya movement is controlled. They can't leave the areas. They're not allowed to leave their camps. They've been kind of pushed into one part of Sittwe, at least the places that we visited. They literally faced a trade embargo. So the Rakhine really don't want to trade with the Rohingya. So there's a handful of people, brave Rakhine, who are ostracized, who take goods to the markets of the Rohingya, and that's a bit of a lifeline for the Rohingya. And the comparison between the two places is amazing. You can find TV shops in the Rakhine part of town, air conditioning, cold drinks, selling fridges, washing machines, everything. But if you go to the Rohingya side, apart from the fact that there are no roads, sometimes just makeshift roads, dirt roads, the uh, the poverty that these people face, that the Rohingya face, is astonishing. I don't even think there's electricity other than really cheap and crappy solar panels that hardly give them any energy. I don't even think that they're strong enough to power a fan for more than an hour. You have kind of hut shops sometimes on the side. There's just like a side street stall selling stuff, no protection from the sun. I'm not even sure I saw a toy shop in the Rohingya camps or Rohingya part or Rohingya villages. Whereas if you go to the Rakhine part, they had toy shops, bikes, footballs, all sorts, and that's just something. The ones that are registered sometimes can receive aid, but sometimes the ones that are not registered, if they're not recognized or registered, then they're not going to be receiving any aid or food. And something that was really striking was that we stopped off to visit a camp, and whilst we were there, we heard this massive cheer go up from the children. It was like this happiness, this cheer, this kids screaming and shouting with pure, you know, adulation. It's so happy. And it was a truck that had just come in with food, and these kids weren't happy because they just received a game or some footballs or something like that. It was because they had been hungry, and they'd seen a truck full of aid coming of rice, and they were cheering and shouting and screaming. And it just struck then, it just struck us that um, in the Rakhine part of town, and in fact the rest of the world, this is not something that's normal. These children's childhood is being stolen, it's been robbed. When children have to think and cheer think about their hunger, or have to, that they feel so happy just to see food, I think there's something wrong. Their basic human rights and their basic needs are not being addressed by the international community, or by the Burmese government. In fact, the Burmese government is complicit uh, in the persecution of the Rohingya. So that was one thing that we saw. Some of the living conditions, other than tents and huts, were straw huts, uh, and that can't stand up when the rains come, when they eventually do, offer litter protection. And when they're cooking, or when they attempt to cook, of it's very easy for them to catch fire. And in one case, we saw a child that had been badly burnt, and it was because of the straw huts. It's just a fire risk. It's a health and safety risk. Um, there's a lack of hospitals, clinics, a lack of decent doctors. So, and when I eventually send out the pictures and the videos, I think it become evident. I saw some young Rohingya Muslim kids playing, and what they were playing with was yellow kind of bottles, about so high, so big, um, and had what they'd done. And these bottles, they're yellow. That's what they transport oil in, and they had cut cut out here the part of the bottle and attached their string on one end. And what they did was fill them with sand and just pull them, and that was the game that these children were playing in sand. So a bottle that size, fill it up with sand, and pull it along in the sun, just trying to make a game, keep themselves entertained. Uh, and that was something that, again, going and sticking to the theme of children. My article that spoke about listening to the children when they were asked to draw by the American doctor. They drew in extreme detail what actually took place, what happened, and they said that first the the monks and the kind of Rakhine mob came in, and for those people that defended their villages against uh, the mobs went back, and then the military came in with their guns. Children spoke of seeing people hacked to death. Uh, Several children spoke about one mentally ill child that was killed uh, and hacked to death. In one of the pictures, they just drew the head, the arms, and the legs separate, and we asked, "What is this?" And they said that this was that child. They drew the color, the sea, and they colored it in red, and asked, "Why is it red?" And they said that some people are trying to swim away after the boats were burnt or rammed, and then they were struck with spears as they tried to escape, and the color of the water became red with blood. And it seems to be that it wasn't just a mob, it wasn't just sporadic violence. It seems from the testimonies of the children that it was organized, and it was orchestrated deliberately to push out and massacre the Rohingya. And this is from just testimonies of the children. I have those as well. And when I get back to the UK, we'll be doing something with those, whether it's handing them over to human rights organisations or to United Nations or whatever we can do. Um, there's also a great level of propaganda taking place. Um, Sorry, I'm just grabbing a paper that you can take a look at. This is the R&D paper. It's the Rakhine National Development paper. And on here, some of the headlines say the government should keep its promise and identify unregistered people, i.e., the non-citizens, not to give them a citizenship, as far as I understand it. And why doesn't the world mention that the native people have rights according to international law? And they talk about native people in terms of the Rakhine, and they don't consider the Rohingya